All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Giving double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect. Peace and salutations to the Hakim, the brethren out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth in 100% sincerity. And peace and salutations to the few and sincere sisters who believe in this gospel. So I want to entitle this lesson, There Will Be Recompense for the Wickedness of Babylon, or America, the United States of America. There will be a recompense, a judgment by the Most High, by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, right? The God of all the earth, the God who created all things and everything, right? There is going to be a recompense. So, like it, there is going to be a recompense for number one, what has happened to the Israelites here in this country, what has happened to um, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans here in this country. There's going to be a recompense. There's going to be a judgment for this place, right? So what I want to do is bring out the scriptures, edification according to that judgment. So Lord willing, this video lesson be edifying, right? So look, we're going to go here to Jeremiah chapter 50. And I'm going to start at verse. I'm going to start at verse 8, right? And it reads, Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as the he-goats before the flocks. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken. Their arrows shall be as a Slakia. Slakia, I got distracted. It says their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain, right? So it says the Lord is going to set array a multitude of countries from the north, right? What is that going into? That's going into primarily Russia, right? That's going into Russia, but that's also going to include nations like the EU and NATO nations, right? Because what do we see going on here? Um, we see a lot of, number one, a lot of arrogancy and a lot of pride from Trump and just the quote unquote American government in general. We see a lot of arrogancy, a lot of pride and things from them, a lot of political tough talk. You know what I'm saying? And basically a lot of things that are going into biblical prophecy. But this devil is creating enemies across the world, right? All of its allies that Babylon has are eventually going to be turned into enemies, right? And we can get that in Revelation chapter 17. And I'm going to start at verse 14. And it reads, These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, right? This is where the horse sitteth. The horse talking about America, Babylon the Great. And the waters are talking about all of the nations and different groups of people who dwell in this country, right? Because America's likened unto a melting pot, right? Different nations, different people, different ethnicities and things like that, right? It says, verse 16, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, right? These nations are talking about the EU, NATO nations, right? It says, these shall hate the whore. Why are they going to hate the whore? They're going to hate the whore because, number one, of all of the sacrifices that they've made for Babylon the Great that have turned out to just be non-beneficial, and it's actually been hurtful for their countries. And number two, the pride of the people in this country, especially with the government, when it comes to the government, right? And especially Trump, the pride that they have and they're speaking with, they're going to create enemies of those who were once allies, right? All of these NATO nations, right, and EU nations who are or were allied with Babylon the Great are eventually going to become enemies of Babylon the Great, right? Because they're they're realizing they've gone into a raw deal. They're realizing they've gone into a deal that just hasn't been worth it, right? And they're going to have resentment towards America. They're going to have a lot of resentment and a lot of vitriol and hatred towards America, as you see that they're having right now, right? And everything that they're doing is sacrificing for America, but primarily also all of the things that America is doing is for the tiny toppers, right? The small hatters, the 1948ers. You know what I'm saying? Because that land is going to be cleansed with nuclear fire as well. The difference between Babylon here in America and that land is that, um, we're going to have, we're going to rebuild that land over there in, what's called what in today, which is Israel, right? That land is going to be rebuilt. This land over here in Babylon the Great is not going to be rebuilt. It's going to be desolate and it's going to be uninhabited for the rest of eternity, right? So that's important to know. That's important to know, realize, and understand, especially when it comes to prophecy and knowing what's going on and what's going to happen here, right? Like, for example, I've been listening to this audio book called "The Broken Heart of America," and it's speaking on the violent history of St. Louis, Missouri. Right, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. This is where I live, and St. Louis is one of America's older cities, and it's an older Midwestern city. It's actually older than Chicago, and yeah, St. Louis is actually older than Chicago, and there's a lot of history, especially when it comes to the um, slavery of Jake, right? Northern and Southern Kingdom, right? Because you got a lot of the, I guess you can say a word would be crusades. I guess you can say that, or a lot of the um, imperialistic movements in early America was headquartered and started in St. Louis, or St. Louis was because the location of it, being just west of the Mississippi River, right, which is called the Gateway to the West. St. Louis was a city that where a lot of, especially against the Northern Kingdom, a lot of the conquests began, right? Because you had Lewis and Clark to scope out the northwestern part of America, But then you had a lot of conquests to come after that. One of the biggest things was Indian removal, right? Removing the Indians from the native land, right, from their lands, and either really the goal was to exterminate them, right? That was really the goal, right? Exterminate them or move them somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? But the main goal was to exterminate them. And it was the same goal when it came to the Southern Kingdom, when it came to Judah. St. Louis was a city, even though St. Louis was a city that the economy wasn't based around slavery. They were a city that was strongly pro-slavery. It was a city that was strongly pro-slavery at that time. Um, Number one, mainly because these Edomites, especially with the location St. Louis was, these Edomites don't want to see Jake prosper. They hate Jake to the core, to the point to where they just can't help, or they can't stand to see Jake prosper, because they have a lot of racial insecurities, or you can say it like that, right? And in biblical prophecy, it is just, Esau has just come up hating Jake, right? They just hate Jake, right? But St. Louis was a city that was strong on slavery. It was strong on the removal of the Northern Kingdom, or the extermination of the Northern Kingdom, right? And a lot of gruesome things happened. A lot of gruesome policies came about in St. Louis. It was actually a point to where they were thinking about moving the capital of the United States to St. Louis, right? St. Louis could have become what Washington D.C. is today, but it ended up not happening. But yeah, it was a lot of history in that book, in that audio book. I'm still listening to it, but let's keep on going, right? Let's go back to Jeremiah 50. So this is 50 and verse 10. It says, "And Chaldea shall be a spoil; all that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Lord. Because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass, and bellow as bulls. Your mother shall be sore confounded, she that bare you shall be ashamed. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert." Right? Because of the wrath of the Lord, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished, Salakia, and hiss at her plagues. Put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. Shout against her round about, she hath given her hand, her foundations are fallen, her walls are thrown down, for it is the vengeance of the Lord. Take vengeance upon her, as she hath done, do unto her, right? And in the scriptures, in the book of Revelation, it says, do double unto her. I think it's another one. Yeah, it's in Revelation 18 and verse 6, right? I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Yahweh hath remembered her iniquities. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double according to her works. And the cup which she hath filled to her double," right? So America is going to get recompense for all of the wickedness that it has put forth throughout the earth and in its own land, right? In its own land of Babylon the Great, America has done a lot of atrocious deeds, right? Starting with Jake, starting with the Northern Kingdom and the Southern Kingdom. You know what I'm saying? So America has to be, this place has to be judged. This place has to be, um, um, you know what I'm saying? It has to be rewarded for her deeds. As the scriptures say, thy works you shall receive according to thy works. Well, America is going to receive according to her works. All the things that Babylon the Great has done. You know what I'm saying? It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 34. I'm going to start at verse 4. It says, come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people, let the earth hear, and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury upon all their armies. He hath utterly destroyed them, he hath delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain shall be cast out, and their stink shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood, and all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all the host shall fall down, as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. Right? So the heavens are going to be rolled together as a scroll. What's that talking about? The mushroom clouds from the ICBM missiles, the nuclear missiles. Verse 5, it says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea, Edom, right? Esau, Edom, and upon the people to my curse, to judgment. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made fat with fatness, and with the blood of lambs and goats, and with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea, right? And this is the modern day land of Idumea. This is the modern day land of Edom, because Basra is the capital city of Edom, right? And Babylon the Great is the capital city of Esau's kingdom, right? Because this is where we are. We're in Esau's kingdom right now, and this is the capital city. You may say, well, America is a country. Well, America, this country is likened unto a large city. You know what I'm saying? So America is the capital of Esau's modern empire. Salakia, let's Salakia, I just had something that came to mind. Yeah, Isaiah 47:1. Here it is. It says Isaiah chapter 47, starting at verse 1. It says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel, right? So the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, is going to come in his vengeance, right? And it says, I'm not going to meet thee as a man. It's talking about Yahweh Shah. Yahweh Shah is going to meet us as with an angelic force. It's going to come to this place with an angelic force, and destroy Babylon. You know what I mean? That's how Babylon the Great is going to go down. That's how America's going to go down, right? Starting with Yahweh Shah, and it's going to get finished off by the nuclear ICBM missiles. Verse 5, it says, "Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the lady of kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke," right? So the Lord allowed us to go into captivity here in Babylon the Great as a punishment. But these devils showed us no mercy, right? And a good history book on how merciless Esau was is the book that I just mentioned, or I believe it comes in hard copy form, but it's I'm listening to the audiobook version. It's called Salakia, The Broken Heart of America, right? Talking about the violent history of St. Louis. Because a lot of wickedness that happened here in Babylon the Great, a lot of wickedness started here. It started here in St. Louis, right? A lot of wickedness was perpetuated, and a lot of affliction on Jake, Northern and Southern Kingdom, was a big focus on the early development of St. Louis, Missouri, right? So look, man, Lord willing, this video lesson was edifying. Point has been made. Giving all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachakurash. And until next time, Shalom.